Hello, good morning, everyone. We are still letting people add themselves in, so we'll give it a minute for everybody to join us. As you can slightly fisheye lens see, you're joined by us in the Sheffield office today. We have a few people dialing in to present their sections as well. So let's have a look. That looks like a good turnout so far. Looks like people are adding themselves in as we go. So if I start with some housekeeping, so as ever, this session is recorded. It will be available online afterwards. Because this is set up as a webinar, you cannot put your camera on or unmute unless you're a presenter. Today, I'm joined by the EBS team as well as some special guests. So we're excited to take you through everything we have today. So just as people finish joining in, the recordings of these sessions are always shared on communities. At the end of this session, I will share a link. So if you don't already have access to EBS communities and you're a current customer, you're welcome to join. You can request access and we will grant that. And you can also choose to have access to our email digest, which is the best place to find out what's going on, what's happening next. So if I get us started, people will carry on joining. So welcome everyone, I'm Gabby Walshaw. I'm the product manager for EBS, Matas and Engage. So I look after our whole vocational learning portfolio. For those of you in Wales, I also look after the West product. So I sit across all of your vocational learning practice. Today we're looking at EBS and we're just following up the EBS 444 release. So I know a number of you have already gone live on that release. It'll be a good chance to make sure you're making use of everything that's added to that release. I'm joined today by EBS product owners, Kevin, Joe, Mikhail and Stephen. We're also joined by Kavita Sirpal, who's our customer advisory consultant, and Reza Masavian, who is our Engage head of customer success. So if I start with the exciting news. We've been trailing the option of an in-person event for a while. We've moved some dates to make sure that they don't clash with things like exams and returns. We have a confirmed date in the diary. So if you want to join us in person, get the chance to see some of the things that we're doing next, get involved, influence the roadmap, and also see some of our wider product base. So things like tribal dynamics, the tribal admissions function. You can see that on Tuesday, the 16th of July. It is a shared FE and HE event. So if you are one of our EBS HEIs and you really want to see some of the offerings that are in place specifically for higher education, so really designed around the work that you do, you'll be able to attend those events as well as the FE events. So I don't have any more details yet. They will all be set live next week. So we'll make sure that that's circulated. But feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, have a look on communities, keep an eye on what we announce, and we'll make sure it goes out in the email digest as well, so there's no chance of missing it. So I'm going to hand over to Stephen Gardner, who's our technical product owner. And we're going to start with something that I know customers have waited for a little while and been really excited about, which is an improvement to external authentication.
Good morning, everyone. There's lots of people still joining, so just for those just joining, this will be recorded and you can watch back the introduction. But yes, as Gabby has introduced, I'm really excited to be talking to you this morning about external authentication and what we've done in this space in 444. So if I go straight in, is why are we looking to change authentication? And this has come out of a number of reasons, which you can see there. So one of the things that we're always is the security of our system and what data we hold. And ultimately we hold password hash information. So there's a risk if you have a data breach that people get hold of that information. So this is something that we're looking to move away from doing. For those of you, a number of our customers have looked to get Cyber Essentials certification. And one of the key recommendations of that is that if you are providing public websites, that you look at implementing multi-factor authentication. We're also aware that lots of customers have had challenges with our current authentication methods, whether that's balancing it, making sure it's usable so that the right people can get in as easily as possible, but also keeping it secure so you keep out malicious users. And this is to do, in terms of managing, distributing passwords, handling password reset, handling locking, handling forgotten passwords flows. Some of those have caused issues and have been barriers for genuine users of your system logging into EBS, which is something that we're looking to address. And a final point here is we've had a long-term goal of, in terms of making it easier for learners and prospective learners to access your websites, integration with social providers. So using authentication mechanisms that they're already familiar with, whether that's Twitter X or Facebook or Xbox Live, being able to use those account information to log on to EBS. So the technology we've chosen to implement this new external authentication is called B2C, which stands for business to customer. And why have we chosen this? So this is a proven technology that has been adopted in other areas of Tribal for similar purposes. It's a Microsoft solution, so a lot of the technology that we develop, as you're aware, is built around Microsoft technology stack. And B2C itself is built on exactly the same technology as Entra ID, which is called, it used to be called Azure ID. So Entra ID is the new terminology, so I will try and use that. I often flip between the two. But it's key to point out that B2C is separate from your Entra ID. So you can keep your groups of users completely separate. As a solution, the charging options from Microsoft are built around monthly active users, MAUs, and for basic integration, it is free for up to 50,000 monthly active users, which we think will be plenty for all of our user base. I should point out there is a small charge. So if you implement multi-factor authentication via phone or SMS, there is a small charge on a per authentication attempt for these methods of access. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, one of the key things is that you can integrate, you can federate authentication through to third-party identity providers like Apple, Google, and a lot of these are built in, but actually it's all built on the OIDC OAuth 2 standards. So actually there's lots of scope for giving different integration options. So who do we see this being used for? So I think the first thing I would say is that what our expectation is that for organisation accounts, so for staff, for enrolled learners, that you would continue to use Entra ID or Google Workspace as you do now. So when a student starts the college and you give them their Office 365 account or however you do it, then that is the way you would continue for those users to access EBS. B2C is designed for everybody else who accesses EBS. So these might be employers, they might be parents. Probably the biggest use case and the one that I'd like to demonstrate this morning is for applicants. Okay, staff without organisation accounts, so maybe teaching staff who don't have an Office 365 account. B2C could be used, can be used for this, and I know this has been a challenge for those users up to now. At this point, we haven't done anything around service API accounts, but we do intend to look at this in the future. So the intention is that all other types of authentication could use B2C. And just on that point, just to touch on the transition and I guess the adoption. So the way that it's been put into 444 is definitely adopt at your own pace. You can install, upgrade 444, and all your existing authentication methods will work exactly as they do now. There has been no change. So the idea is that you can look at this and adopt it as you're ready for it. I've noted that this may be that in the future we may make this our only method of authentication, but at the moment we are not announcing any D support. So when I say legacy authentication, I mean things like LDAP, Windows authentication, EBS authentication. But a key point is our intention is that we will not develop these further. So looking at things like forgotten password flows, we know that they work, but there are certain challenges. Our focus will be on B2C authentication, and we will look to build that out. At some point in the future, once we're comfortable that this is a technology that works for everyone and that it meets all the use cases, then in the future we may see some D supports. But at the moment, there are no D supports. But that's our sort of direction of travel, just to make that clear. So what I'd like to do, I've got a little bit of time this morning, is to show you some demos of actually what we're hoping to put in. And I hadn't realised there were animations on this slide, so that's interesting. So I'm going to just show some applicant sign up. I want to show 2 scenarios. And I want to show you some key points about how we've done the integration and demonstrate those to you. And there will be a chance for questions at the end, or there's a Q&A on the webinar itself. If there's a lot of questions, I fully expect that we will be running another longer webinar just purely on B2C. So if there's demand, I'm quite happy to do that in the future. So if I'll share my screen, and hopefully someone on the call can just confirm everything's coming through okay. Okay, lovely. Right. So I'm just going to focus on the on-track learner side of things at the moment, and quickly flick up some institution settings. So there's been, in recent releases, we did a lot of work around the on-track learner login page. What we've done is we've added a set of settings onto this set of settings around external authentication, where you can configure this. We've also made a small change to the create account panel. So you can, at the moment in 443, you've got a yes, no, whether you show the create or count. You've got a third option now that show it, but split to external authentication. So if I go to on-track learner, this is, just minimize that. So this is a screen that you'll be familiar with. And the panel I'm looking at is the create an account panel. So if I create that, currently this goes to a user registration page. Now we understand that trying new authentication methods can be quite a challenge. So what we've done, we've taken a new approach with B2C, that there are settings that you can switch behavior, but also you can use the URL to say, actually, can I trial this behavior? So this is what I'm showing here. So this, without the URL, is current existing technology. Create an account using an EBS credentials. By flicking a URL switch here, I've been able to change this panel so that it now works with the B2C integration. So we're hoping that you can trial everything on live, you can set up B2C, you can make yourself sure that you're happy that it works in your environment before you switch it on and make it available for all users. So we are hoping that this will make it easy to test and adopt without needing necessarily to test on a separate system first. So if I click on this, this goes into a new B2C authentication page. I guess just to point out, in terms of branding, you have a number of options in B2C. So I've gone for this very much out of the box settings. So I've changed 2 things. I've changed a logo and a background image. Everything else is out of the box. Our PS team have been looking at configuration options, and you can go to town, you can make these screens look however you want. But for everything you see here, this is very much out of the box. So what I want to do is demonstrate sign up for an applicant. So I've got a sign in here, and I've got a link here to sign up. So I'm going to sign up with an email address, and this is a key thing. So like our Enter ID authentication, everything links around the email address. And this is where the first part of the MFA comes in, that even if you haven't got MFA enabled, sign up always has an email multi-factor step. So you need to get a verified email. So this means that every learner that you sign up, you can guarantee that it's a valid email. Okay, so you get a code, which again, you can I've got a logo on there. I've not done anything else to configure that, and that gives you a code, which you then can verify. And at this point, this is the equivalent of creating a local account. I've then got the ability to put in my password and details. So just to point out, you get some validation. So again, these are out of the box settings, but B2C has a vast array of different ways you can vary the complexity to make sure it matches up with your institution design. Now this is where I can type. I can't use a simple password because it won't work. Okay. So having gone through the B2C step, it then takes you now to another on-track learner page. So this is like our original EBS authentication sign-up page, except it's got a slightly different URL. So you can configure this in Designer in the same way that you can with the original page to put on any extra bits of information that you want to collect as an institution. So you'll see email has come through, but it's grayed out, so I can't change that. It's also brought through my first name and surname. We've got title as an optional here, and then we've made date of birth a mandatory field. So that should complete the sign up, and then I'm logged in. If I just log out again, and then log in, from this point on, I can use my email address and my password to log in. Okay, logging in is never the most exciting of demonstrations, but I will now just do one more scenario. So I would like to show you the social integration. So I'm going to log in with a Google account. So I'm logged into my browser as I guess a learner or an applicant would be on their phone if they're using Android. So I'm logged into the browser. So following the same steps, rather than choosing to sign up now, you can see here I've got some integration options. So again, these are all controlled at an institution level. You can decide which social account you want to make available. If I choose the Google one, I'm getting to choose the account. So I'm logging in, and I'm logged in as this email address here. I then get a consent page. So this is a fairly standard thing that you'll be used to if you've used social providers to log into other services, where it explains what services, what bits of information are going to be shared with Google in this case. So I've continued to that. I get to the same sign-up screen or a similar sign-up screen that we've seen before, where my email address is pre-populated along as my surname and forename. That's come from Google rather than me typing it in. But I still have to verify. So even if you do a social provider, you've still got that email validation step. So you can be sure that the email address that is being used is a valid one. Should have a new code that's come through. At this point, so that's verified. I can now continue. And then I am now logged in. Oh, no, I'm not quite logged in. I've then still got the same steps that we had before. Getting a bit ahead of myself. Fill in the same steps.
That is a lie.
Don't judge me on my date of birth. So I'm now logged in. And as you see, as part of that sign-ups, I didn't have to enter any password credentials. So essentially, all the password information is now held in Google. It's not actually being held in B2C. So if I log out as this learner and then log back in, I'm following exactly the same link. If I choose to log in with Google, clicking that, I will be signed in because I'm signed into the browser. So hopefully you can see the benefits this will be in terms of a sign-up process. This will be far more accessible to users. And yeah, it gives you lots of options around supporting applicant sign-in using different methods. So I think that is all I want to say. I say, yeah, welcome, open to questions. This is there in 444. We are expecting to do a further little bits of work in 445, follow-on work based on feedback. So yeah, we'd love to hear your experience of using this, and yeah, we welcome feedback on this new implementation.
There was one question. What if email from EBS fails? But I don't think that there are any emails directly from EBS. It's from...
Yes, the email verification comes directly from B2C itself. So that verification step is built into B2C.
Just to mention, because we had a few people joining us, I think after I'd put this screen live. So in case you missed it, we do have a date for an in-person session. So this is the 16th of July. It is a shared conference with FE and HE. So in particular, if you do HE delivery and you're interested in things like the Tribal Admissions product, our Tribal Dynamics offering, our mobile app, there will be opportunities to see that from an HE perspective, as well as joining the FE sessions. All of the details will go live next week, but we'd love to see you in person. And I also forgot to mention, but there is a Q&A, so you're welcome to ask any questions as you go along. We have, as you can see, a whole team in place monitoring it, so we're keeping an eye on questions as they come in. And I think, Reza, that's over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Gabby, I've just requested control, so I'm hoping that that's working. Yeah. Okay. So if I just flick through these slides that Stephen was using, is that updating for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So like I say, good morning, everybody. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of you so far, but I appreciate that there's a lot more of you to meet. I'm Reza Mousavian, and I'm the head of customer success here for our Tribal Engage product. So those who are not familiar with it, that is our mobile platform, which effectively interfaces a lot of the EBS elements with regards to on track, but also is designed to help drive student experience and engagement across your campus as well. What I thought I'd do is take a little bit of your time just to kind of update you on where we're at, but equally from a call to action point of view, if anything of what I say today is of interest to you, then please do reach out to me and have those conversations, of which I've included my details towards the end of my specific slot. So as a starter for 10, since stepping into the head of customer success role, it's been really exciting because it's given me the opportunity to really hone in on progress to date with regards to all of the EBS sites that have taken our solution alongside it. And what we're seeing is when we reflect back on just this academic year, it's really encouraging to see the impact effectively. Whilst this is giving us a quantitative view of the world with regards to the difference it's making for the institution, we're also keen to sort of focus in on the qualitative aspects as well. And as you'll see on the screen so far, whilst we're seeing a lot of interaction with the platform, specifically around timetable, that's a consistent element that we receive back when we have speak to students, that it's just great to be able to have it in their pockets on their own devices. With that, delivering on that on-demand mentality, they're also able to forge those relationships and connections without having to exchange any personal contact information. But most recently, specifically from the sites that we've worked with since September, so they've gone live in September and they've been long-standing EBS customers, already they're telling us that they're seeing that it's having an impact with regards to driving and improving attendance as well. Whilst we will obviously not claim that it's a silver bullet answer and it's going to solve all your problems, what we're witnessing is that it's an effective measure. And that's because there's loads of different things. Not only can you sort of leverage from the core functionalities of the app in its native elements, but also the integration points to EBS in terms of the workflows and the notifications that you can trigger and so on. We're receiving feedback with regards to the exams aspect of it. So early action on concessions. Students are feeding back with regards to the fact that it helps alleviate that sense of anxiety for them, just knowing that the colleges acknowledge the fact that they might require 25% extra time in those exams. But also when speaking and working and collaborating with student services colleagues, those who are in charge of all things enrichment, we're getting feedback that all of the activities that they've arranged for the colleges have actually sold out for the first time in record time. And that's purely down to the fact that, you know, they've not had to reinvent the world as such. They've just made the initial advice and guidance and all the information accessible via a medium of which is familiar and user friendly to the students. Equally, we're having some interesting conversations. Whilst we appreciate that, you know, you have your core pathways and your study programs and so on. There's a lot of colleges obviously out there that have got those commercial outlets associated to them with regards to whether that's hair and beauty or other. Again, it's those teams are seeing it as an opportunity to effectively promote those things internally across the college, and they're seeing that those improvements are being made throughout as well. Now, they're just some very anecdotal examples. There's endless amounts of case studies, of which I'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you about as well. Now, moving forward, as I've mentioned, there's a lot of integration points with EBS that you can the sector, and whilst they are making progress, due to various reasons, they may have felt that they may be sort of lagging behind slightly, or that they have identified areas for improvement. That's not a problem. That's what we're here for, is to be able to sort of facilitate those conversations and to make sure that you're supported. So some examples as a result, as an output example of those conversations are, we're now speaking to sites by where they now understand and know that these types of things are available, are things around self-registration, for example, digital ID cards. That's posing an interesting opportunity for various different colleges, you know, in terms of being able to surface the student ID alongside the barcode. Again, those colleagues who are on the call that have spoken to me directly would have heard me say already, we appreciate that whilst you have a policy in place with regards to having visible lanyards at all times, we also recognise that not every student remembers their ID every day. So by having the app alongside the ability to surface digital ID cards, is helping reshape those processes and those policies for institutions, which is helping in all sorts of ways, even reception staff to some extent with regards to their productivity and their time spent. We're also working with some colleges with regards to the fact that the pages function is available. The pages, the USB aspect of that is that it invites the cross-functional areas of your college to play a part. We appreciate that you've got many EdTech solutions, such as Teams, Google, other VLE platforms, and they may have comms features associated to them. The app can 100% coexist with these platforms. And the reason for it is that the app becomes the college platform for all things student experience and student life. And the pages aspect invites your business support areas, such as student services, which can then be broken down in terms of careers, finance, and so on and so forth. And they can publish all the key updates, information, advice, and guidance via these pages. Now, based on the feedback we've received from pages, traditionally speaking, it relied on users having to go in and subscribe to those pages. However, we've done some work by where you can actually auto-subscribe groups of learners to these specific pages from day one of when they're made aware that an app exists and they're able to log in and be associated to it. Also, we've got some long-standing customers that have initially started the project with regards to launching the app with their enrolled learners, which is understandable. They're now getting to a point in which they'd like to use it with applicants. So again, we appreciate that you will have various initiatives in terms of keep warm activities and strategies. We'd be really keen to speak to you around how the app can be play a big part in that, to help support you improve your conversion rates, but equally from a student experience point of view, be that one platform that follows them through from application to enrolled and during their time with you at the college. From an IRP targets point of view, again, working with customers with regards to leveraging the EBS IRP aspects with non-track. So it's about working on the notifications workflows. So for example, the case study for that very quickly is that if you've got, if a learner has got targets that are due or overdue, you can leverage the notification logic effectively to automatically trigger those notifications and nudge the students back in line to action those specific targets that might have been set within their IRPs. Again, getting very positive feedback with that, because we appreciate you have tutors and coaches and so on that are maintaining these tasks and having to chase learners. So a lot of institutions are starting to recognise the fact that it helps in terms of productivity and more efficient ways of working. And then finally, on this specific page here, attendance and absence. So that's twofold. So again, very similar to what I just described with regards to like notification logic and nudge notifying students. Again, a lot of sites are adopting the logic around attendance notifications. So we appreciate that every college will have an attendance benchmark, for example, of 90%. What you can do is leverage that technology so that when Joe Bloggs reaches 90% or below, the system will automatically recognize that and then trigger a notification to Joe to let them know that they are at or below college benchmarks, again, notifying them and nudging them back in line. And that can be supported by a message in terms of saying, Joe, we've noticed your attendance is dropping. Is everything okay? Here's a link for further information, advice and guidance or support. Again, all things that we can work with you. But then on absence, again, we appreciate that a lot of institutions have an absence policy in place. Through the conversations that we're having, often we're getting feedback that it's either 6 or 8 clicks buried into the website and therefore not necessarily followed in the way that certain colleges expect. So why not make it accessible via the quick link section of our solution? So students are able to simply get their phone off their bedside table, load the app up, go to the quick link which says report absence. They simply fill out a form. That will then, the workflow behind that will take care of all of that process for them. Not only are they in line now with the college policy, but also that it updates the registers for the institution as well with regards to that process. So all of that said, I appreciate that there's a lot of things to sort of maybe consider. So whether that's you're already a customer of ours and you're thinking, hang on, we're not using this, that's absolutely fine. Please do reach out and we're happy to have those conversations. But equally, if you don't have our app and you'd like to explore it further, we're keen to speak to you around how it could possibly help alongside your EBS solution. And as a result of that, since stepping into the head of customer success role, what I've been busy doing in the background is putting in place what we call the customer advisory package for Tribal Engage. So a lot of our customers on the call will be familiar with the customer advisory package for EBS. If you have engaged alongside that or you're interested in it in any way, shape or form, we now have something in place which supports you from an advisory perspective as well. And that is brand new for 2020. So as an overview of that, in terms of what you can expect from a advisory package, it will be of no surprise if you've come across our EBS advisory packages. We've obviously tried to maintain consistency across the board. So you can expect to see these different types of things as an overview. But hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory without me having to spell out everything on this slide. That won't be a good use of everybody's time. And as mentioned, this presentation is also recorded for you to be able to refer back to. However, just as an overview of what you can expect in terms of the key services within our advisory package, these are all listed on the left-hand side. So you would have heard me mention a lot around custom workflows and trying to leverage notifications for whether that be attendance or ILP or other. All of those things have been taken into account in terms of it being appealing and something that institutions want to adopt moving forward. A lot of our customers by default, when they purchase the product, fall into the basic category, as highlighted on the screen at the moment. But the packages, as we move along, as you can see, are available for you to consider across Enhanced, Premium and Premium Plus. One key thing that I'd like to call out at this stage is once you step into Enhanced, Premium or Premium Plus, you'll start to notice the toggles being switched on, but also in some of them you'll have a number. And what that means is, for example, the continuous improvement workshops example in Enhanced, that means that you'll get 2 of those workshops made available to you as part of that Enhanced package in the 12-month cycle. And then as we move across, you'll notice that more gets unlocked in terms of being able to support you and making sure that the app is having the desired effect and impact and success for your students and your staff. But we'll be able to work with you with regards to annual health checks, something that we've had feedback on in terms of it being a challenge because of just purely, we appreciate you have so much going on at the college and so many other projects as well. So we can support you with regards to that report from that perspective, but also other things start to come into fruition with the student ID configuration at the premium level. That would be part of that service and something that we'd be able to put in place for you. And then, of course, last but not least, from a Premium Plus perspective, you get everything. But again, drawing attention to those numbers as well within those toggles that you can see on screen. So the workshops increase to 6, but the custom workflow configurations go to 8, and then the focus theme sessions, and these can be broken into whether that you want focus team sessions for student services, the marketing department, or other. We can work with you based on our out-of-box plans in terms of what you'd like to be delivered from that perspective. And then finally, from me, what I'd like to do is just to emphasize the fact that I'm more than happy to spend time with yourselves, whether that's remotely or on. So please do get in touch. My details are on the deck there at the moment. Feel free to reach out, arrange team calls, whether that's one-to-one or you'd like to sort of gather your colleagues and wider stakeholders on a Teams call. Happy to facilitate that. Equally, having a lot of conversations at the moment, given the timing of where we're at in the year, everyone's starting to think about their leading up to the summer and so on. If you'd like me to come on site and be part of that process and support you as our customers, happy to do that. A few customers have taken me up on that offer already, so if it is something you're interested in, then please do get in touch soon. There's only one of me available at the moment that can support that approach. But equally, I'm available on socials as well, should you wish to connect with me and have an informal chat via the direct message feature of LinkedIn, for example. But that's me. Hopefully that whistle-stop tour of Engage related information has been useful. Like I said at the very beginning, if an ounce of what I've mentioned to you today has sparked some degree of interest, then I'd love to be able to speak to you. But thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic, thanks, Reza. Just one question in there, which actually I think is probably more of an EBS question, which is, can attendance targets be personal for the student instead of a 90% blanket target? So yes, attendance targets can actually be customised in the learner progress screen. So there's a little toggle each for both attendance and punctuality, and you can set a personal target. We know that's really important, particularly if you have something like a learner returning from medical treatment or a bereavement, where the last thing that they want is to log on and see that actually their target is lower than we would expect. And we have another target. Are we any closer to providing self-service usage analytics and dashboards? Yes, we are. So screen 1 is coming out in this release. It is an embedded Power BI screen. We would more than welcome a call about that to go through both what's currently planned and what we know you want in the future, because we're in ongoing development. So Lee, if you want to drop Reza a line, Reza will happily get on a call with you and talk through what's coming in the Power BI screens, and also let you feedback what you need to see in terms of data. Okay, Kath, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to just go through a few pointers for getting ready for enrolment, because it is fast approaching. And between now and results day, I'm sure everybody's starting to get ready for the applications being converted into enrolments. Sorry, Gabby, you okay to share the next slide? Okay. So whilst that slide just loads up, so the first point would be just make sure you've got your embargo set against the board occurrence. So I appreciate that's not necessarily just for enrolment, but most of our customers will start enrolling from results day. So don't forget to set your embargoes against the board occurrence and test that you're happy with that everything works. And if you do have any reports that you need to run, make sure they build in that embargo. And just make sure learners know what time exam results will be available. You don't want them logging in at 7 o'clock if you're not going to release them until 8 o'clock, for example. In terms of the enrolments, obviously we advise going through your enrolment processes, make sure you're testing all your customer pages and processes. We're hoping nothing's going to break in 444, but it's always wise to run through all your pages. Stephen will come to this, but we do have the feature to switch off tryouts and make sure, again, you've got nobody running huge reports on the enrolment days, just to take the pressure off the servers. And then with load testing, again, if you want to consider load testing of your web services and spreading the load. And another pointer, is there any chance that you can have your results available, from 8 AM to 12 and then start your enrolment from 12 p.m. Again, is there a case that you can spread the need to log on to the app and the Learner Hub throughout the day rather than everybody starting at 8 o'clock, for example, on that? So just a few little tips for to think about ahead of summer enrolments.
Excellent, thank you. Nice and brief. As with last year, we have plenty of support available on your key enrolment days. We know those peak enrolment periods are really important to you. So we tend to actually get the EBS team into the Sheffield office. So we're effectively an extension of the support team for the day. Michael, over to you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. So my name is Michael Nitsch. I have rejoined EBS team last summer with the remit to overview primary EBS core central, with the exception of the statutory returns, as well as EBS shape, which is our timetabling and registers the solution. So if you move to the next slide, in the first instance, I was tasked to look at the curriculum planner, which is probably around 10 years old now, and it wasn't being developed recently. So that was the first thing, and I would like to thank you as well here to all the customers that contributed with all the hints and requests around the curriculum planner during the last release, because we have made all the changes to bring it up to date with the latest methodology changes, as well as adding all the little bits and bobs that were always requested or needed there. Another thing we've done was we implemented StaffGrid in Curriculum Manager. Initially, it was requested by the New Zealand market because they had the biggest problem there, or pain point, while managing a lot of members of staff, and they have a very specific curriculum setup there. So it was a pain point for them. But then, looking closer to it, we thought actually, we want to give it to the all locals, because the staff management became also very relevant now for all the on-track modules and setup and integration with learner side. We also done a little enhancements, like adding the UI level filtering on the enrollments. Again, this was request from the customer when they had a lot of units and different enrollments on enrollment screen. So the screen was very busy, so it helps you to focus on specific data. And we have removed the email sync integration from my app. So now your college email will not get overwritten with the emails stored externally. So if you move, what I will do now, show you curriculum planner screenshots very briefly, and other items will be covered later by Kavita during the demo. So first thing was T-levels calculations. So that's based on the data you record under your UIO learning game, when you select the program type and planned hours, and then add the course to the curriculum planner, it will calculate the T-levels income. So next slide, please. We have extended the ability to display course attributes. So you can bring the course attributes from the curriculum into the curriculum planner for verification. So you can verify if, let's say, your mode of attendance or funding source is properly recorded on the UI. So your team leaders can also verify your data a little bit. Next slide. This was okay. What we have done also is we introduced the qualification date precedence. So in the past, the calculations were based primarily around the start date. So what we have done now, if you manage to have the correct learning aim dates or qualification start and end dates, those will take precedence over your start and end date. So it will always start with the most detailed dates that are learning aim, then if those are not populated, will fall onto the qualification, or like it used to be, start and end date of the UIO. That was long requested. We have added now ability to toggle between the percentage profile and number of learners. So if you use the curriculum planner up to now, you would use the percentage profile. If you then now with the latest release change it to the number of learners on the top, it will recalculate them to the headcounts, and from now on you can use the headcounts. And of course, as you know, there was a lot of changes to admin budget this year. So what we have done is provided workarounds and new workflows on the communities, but at the same time, this is now being released in the software. And we have also, what we're working on now in 4.45 is to actually import those aims directly from the government published learning aims database. So we won't have to use our workaround database that we had to mend to actually account for those new rates.
I think that is you. Excellent. Thanks, Mikhail. That's quite a big update in terms of curriculum planning. So if you are looking at that and you're not quite sure where to start, or you think that there's something further you'd like to know, do get in touch with us. This is always ongoing work in terms of things like funding calculations. And I know that, like you, we're also starting to think about things like the lifelong learning entitlement and the new Advanced British Standard. So we are keeping an eye on what's coming next as well. So it is time for a break. I appreciate that everyone working in a college or council today will appreciate some time for coffee. So if we see everyone back at 11:35, thank you very much, everyone. Okay, folks, just starting to see people popping back into the call, so we thought we'd mention a couple of things as people come back. So a few people have asked in recent months about what we're doing in place of the old ideas function in communities. So although that looked really effective for customers because you could log your ideas and people could upvote them, it actually didn't work very well in terms of getting those ideas into product. And that's for various reasons. So the product team didn't have direct access, so we couldn't actually update the status. And because we couldn't comment or respond to those ideas, we couldn't come back to you and say, does this work? Is this how you apply it? You know, here's a wireframe, is that what you're looking for? So about a year or 18 months ago, the price from our provider went up enormously for ideas. And we thought actually we weren't using it well, it probably didn't work well for you. So it was time to scrap that and move forward. You'll see now if you use communities regularly that there's a new EBS Ideas communities group. That works really well for us because other customers can chip in and say how they do that, or that they would really like that to work, that this is their business case. So it gives us a better way to prioritize ideas and understand how many people need it. And we also have the ability to come back to you and say, yes, this is in the roadmap, or we haven't considered that, but we'd like to. How would you like it to work? Would it do this? You know, is that the functionality you're looking for? So it's a much better conversational approach. And I hope that what you've seen in recent releases is that we're much better at taking that feedback and getting it into development. And that with recent very big module updates, so things like safeguarding and Markbook, that we are actively listening to you, engaging with you in the development and making sure that it meets your needs as an institution. If you're not already on EBS Communities, I'd really highly recommend it. So it's not just a forum for customers, so all the product team are on it, the customer advisory and professional services teams are on it, and our support and customer success function as well. So if you need support, if you need an idea of how something works, that's the best place to get access to that expertise. And you can start to flag things that you think might be good for future development. We'll also usually start there when we ask people if they're interested in new development. So if we know that people are thinking about what's coming next and what they might like to do, this is the place to do it. This is where we get hold of you and let you know what's coming next. We will have some custom groups, so early adopter groups or special interest groups. In particular, those groups will include enrolment, because we're updating our enrolments function, and fund manager, so updating the support fund manager. So if you're interested in those kind of things, make sure you're logged on to communities. At the end of this session, I will put a QR code on the screen, so give you the link to go and sign up to communities, or you can request one from your usual contact in support. So we're just getting ready to go live again. I'll just let people log back in with their coffees, tea and biscuits. Next is the bit that everybody gets excited for, which is the new product demo. So it's Cav demoing this time. We've got some support from Joe. A lot of you will know Joe, and we did introduce him on the recent coffee call. But Joe was professional services for Solutions and for Engage. And I'm delighted to say that from the start of this year, he is our on-track product owner. So we've worked very closely with Joe for a long time, and he was just a natural fit for the team. So I'm really excited to see him present his work and what the on-track team's been working on. So I will not waffle anymore. I will hand over to Cav and Joe for the next section.
Thank you, Gabby. I was just going to say that was a much better introduction than I was going to do for myself. So thank you for that. Excellent. Hi, everyone. So yeah, thank you for coming along today. As I say, this is my first release webinar that I've been a part of. As part of this release, Cav and I are going to be taking you through some of the key features and updates that are in 4.44. There's quite a bit relating to on-track, so we're going to start there, and then Cav's going to demo some of the functionality that's available in Central. Just to say that this release it's a slightly different release from my perspective, because some of the work that has gone into the release was actually Simon. So essentially, you've had two POs who've put their heads together to get some features out in this release. I'm going to say, so some of it I can't take the credit for, but I happily will do if you are happy with what we've got lined up. But say some of it was Simon's, because he was here for a couple of months of the release before he left in January. And say from January onwards, it's been my responsibility to get some key on-track updates out there. Okay, so before we go into the demo and take you through on screen some of the new updates, Cav, can you flick forward if you can, or Gabby?
Yes.
Just got a slide just to summarise kind of some the sort of key themes for some of the stuff that we've done. So general UI UX changes to Learner Hub, On-Track Hub, and also Contact Hub, which used to be Parent Hub but is now Contact Hub. And we'll explain some of these changes in a bit more detail shortly. But I think moving forward is going to be sort of a general theme where we do want to improve the UI and the UX of On-Track. We want to make sure that end users are getting the best possible experience. They're confident that the system's going to be working, and they're happy with how the content is laid out. So we've got some key updates to take you through there. We've also got some updates to progress and performance, most namely being MarkBook. And Cal's going to take you through a demo of the new MarkBook using the new Angular module. It's excellent, and I think it's sort of night and day ahead of the previous MarkBooks. I'd be really keen to get your thoughts and ideas on what you think of that, and I say hopefully get a few of you thinking about migrating from the old MarkBook to the new MarkBook. And then there are some changes to our IDP module and also Correspondence Manager and On-Track. It's not the full module. It's just the first part of the module, but I say part of the work we did with IDP was bringing in the ability to generate communications, and based off of that, we decided to start the journey to bring Correspondence Manager into On-Track. So we'll show you that as well. Okay, so I think Cav's going to be able to share her screen and take you through some of the key functionality. I say we're going to do this together, and I'm going to sort of summarize it and hopefully tell you why we're doing things, and Cav's going to hopefully be able to show the functionality in action.
Thank you, Joe. Perfect. So we're going to start the updates with the Learner Hub. So I'm just going to log in as my learner as Toby Burgins, and I am on the base page. And as you can see, we have now changed the base page to look a lot nicer and add quite new features. So the first thing you'll notice now is we have got the icons there, but what we've done is make sure they now point to the new progress and performance. And we've tidied up any reference to teaching and learning, which I think we're all glad to see the back of. And it now looks at all the new safeguarding pastoral modules, the mark book, and again, there was no change around the mark book screens for the learners, but certainly the RPs and the targets as well. We've on the homepage, we've introduced a new calendar feature. So a nice little feature where a learner can log in, click on any of the green activities in the dots there, and it will break down what events they have coming up during the calendar. And if they wanted to skip to various other months, they've got the ability to just hit the 3 dashes and they can then navigate to the rest of the academic year and even skip to the following year as well. So we've made that feature just so that on the homepage you get that information straight away at a glance. We've also tidied up the next steps. So we used to see a lot of communication sitting in the next steps when it was no longer applicable, especially for applications and enrolment processes that had been completed off. So now next steps will only show where there is outstanding steps for current and active enrolments and applications as well. The other thing we've done is we have pulled out the interviews from the homepage, and we now have a new page to capture interviews where you can choose your interviews, but you can also then cancel it. And apologies, I've just picked a worse learner who hasn't got an interview, but if you give me a second, I can show you that feature. Apologies. And this is where they can go in, they can cancel an interview, and they can also give a reason as well. So it will ask you to provide a reason, and that is all driven from reference data that you can set yourselves. Yeah. And I'll hand it over to Joe just to go through.
Yeah,
why we did
thank
that.
you, Cav. So it's, so essentially, performance and security are two of the key themes that we do need to make sure that we're sort of following as we go through improving on track. And unfortunately, the sort of previous iterations of the homepage, there was so much going on, there was so much happening that things weren't loading properly, things weren't displaying properly, the behavior of some of the controls weren't working. So we decided to strip a lot of it back, simplify it to make sure that it works. So your learners will be able to load up the page, and if you are using Base, or if you do think about trialing Base, I think it loads within a second or two, so it's much more performant than it has been. The calendar control we've added in as well because it works really well on mobile. So a lot of what we want to do is make sure that the Learner Hub homepage works really well on mobile. So anyone coming from the Engage app or just using their phone to get into Learner Hub, we want to make sure that we're not basically making sure that anyone coming from the mobile will be able to have as good as experience as anyone coming traditionally from a laptop or a desktop. So we've cleaned a lot of it up. The next steps box in particular, and there was a lot of querying that it was doing every time the page was loading, so it made so much more sense to strip that information out, put it into the interviews page, and then that interviews page will run a lot quicker and a lot slicker for the students using it.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just switch to the staff portal, but what you notice now is I don't have to log out as a learner. I can now go log into staff portal, and it won't try and change the persona of the person logged in. So if you are doing some configuration and you then want to log into the learner portal as a learner using a test account, it won't switch you into your staff account in the Learner Hub. So we've separated them out. One of the nice features that we've added, if I just do a learner search, and on the left hand side, if you watch out, what it will do is it now takes you into the learner context as it always did, but it now sticks. So without you having to now scroll down to get to the areas like the progress pages or the academic history or anything like that, it will actually now just roll up straight up to the details and pin the secondary navigation there. So we have built that in just to make it better usability for staff members there as well. The other feature we have introduced as standard now, I appreciate you may have configured this on, is on the documents section. We have got the feature to upload new documents as well. and that now comes as standard on the base pages. Joe, is there anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we are going to be doing some future work on the primary and secondary nav, but it made a lot of sense, as I say, for the learner context links to actually be displayed when you were clicking on them, because I know that we had a lot of feedback to say that it was a bit annoying to having to scroll down. So say we do welcome any feedback and little minor changes. I would say things like that, please feed it back to us, because we will absolutely consider them. And then this uploading the new document on behalf of a learner actually is, again, it's part of a wider project that we're doing where we're looking at allowing users to either self-serve or on behalf of a learner to sort of end-to-end process across applications and enrollments. One of them being able to upload evidence on behalf of the learner, and that first step was actually including this box in this page here. So you are able to upload a new document on behalf of the learner, and they don't have to do everything themselves. So again, we are kind of making key steps, and we're plotting ourselves on the right path.
Thank you very much. So the major changes that we've done is we've now introduced a new Markbook page. We have deliberately done it as a separate link, and that's purely because the fact is obviously mid-year. You might not want to roll this out straight away. You might want to do some testing, make sure you're happy with the way it looks and feels before you then roll it out to all staff. On the communities page, on the progress and performance community page, I have added some details about how to configure it. So if you are not on the data to second navigation, you configured it, it does go through how to add it on there. So you can see it's all built in Angular, and the first thing you can see, it's got the same type of filters to begin with. You've got the ability to select your academic years, your subject, and then your units. So one of the biggest changes we've made here is before EBS and the using of the tutor groups that we had, it would only look at groups that were set at unit level or the level above, i.e. the subject in this case. So if you had a group at the unit, or you had a group at the BTEC 101 course, which you can see here, it would only work off them. What we've now done is we've given you the ability to filter on the level above that. So if, for example, you've got an ESOL qualification, and for the purpose of timetabling, because you've got mixed classes, you're timetabling at the programme level, not the qualification level, this will allow you to filter your data by class, your teaching classes. So we've introduced that, and it will show that, and it will return the data accordingly to what you select there. Of course, you've got the option to run this without selecting your tutor group as well, and you can see how much quicker that is now. And so we've made major changes around the look and feel of the grid. So again, this is just an example of a BTEC one, where it does respect the assignment grouping and the assessments, and you've still got the ability to mark individuals, or you have still got the ability to flood fill. If you do flood column, it does stay there, but it will flood down to all your pages as well. So if you've got multiple pages, it will actually flood down to all of them, not page at a time. And it gives you a nice little summary that it's updating 10 records there as well. On saving that record, you've got your save button at the top as well as at the bottom, again, just for usability. But the nice little feature there now is where you used to have to press search again to get a mark when, in fact, I should actually fully mark a learner first. Bear with me. So I'll just fully mark a learner. When I save that now, what will actually happen is that will generate the results straight away. There is no need to refresh the screen anymore. You'll see the result instantly there. What we've also done is introduce them into group settings. So because obviously you can't configure these grids, what we have done to start with is the predicted working to target grades and the UCAS predicted grades. We have introduced in Central under Markbook the ability for you to decide to either display them or not, and that includes the aggregate scores as well. So if you've got a provision that you want to see the aggregate scores, of course you can display that there. The other major changes we've done is around the the ordering of things, of the assessment criteria. So previously, if you had a mark book that was set up with different types of grading schemes, so if it was pass or fail, you had a mixture of percentages, your drop downs, it would order them according to your ordering, but however, it would always group the grading schemes together. So it would show all the pass and fails first, then the marks out of, then the percentages. This will now not care what the scheme type is, it will respect the ordering that you put into assessments as well. So I appreciate that customers wanted to see assessments in a particular order and they were restricted to some extent. This will now respect it. We haven't changed anything in terms of the hyperlink. You can still click on the learner and see the full history, so you've still got that option. But what we have done is to just make it a little bit more informative. Rather than on the right-hand panel that you had, you've got the status on the grid, just so if you do have a learner that withdraws halfway through and they've only partly marked it, whilst the academic history won't clear down from them because there is an audit trail, you can then see, you know that you can ignore the marking for that learner as well. If I just open up the assessment section, what we have also introduced is a couple of extra features as well. That if you've got records that have been marks have been verified, so you can see they're slightly grey for Tobin here. If I hit that flag and press search, that will hide Tobin's record, because actually if I want to get my marking done, I don't necessarily want to see things that have been verified. At the same time, if you want to concentrate on concentrating on the learners that have not been fully marked, again, you've got a filter for that, and that will filter out anything that's been fully marked as well. So we're just trying to speed up the process for your tutors to enter marks in and make it more user-friendly on that. I think that covers everything. As I said, it's a separate link, so you can, of course, test it against your current mark book and make a decision at what point you want to then switch. So we do hope everybody likes the look and feel of that one. I'm just going to go into ILP next. So, sorry, that's the wrong one. The one thing just to point out is customers who have got an ILP license, you were sent an additional license. Please do plug that in. It allows you to carry on using Cohort Builder in the admin section. You're not going to see any developments at the back of that just yet, but it will be for future development. So apologies, we did have to issue another license, but at the moment there is it's not going to break anything, but it's not going to give you any enhancements just yet on that. But what we have done in the ILP is we have, at the back of feedback, we had a lot of customers who wanted the target section to be a little bit more, to provide more information. So if you add a target now, we haven't extended the actual target title, but we have given you the ability to put additional information. And we made that decision so it was all mobile compatible still. So you do have the ability now to add additional information, as well as the steps if you want to provide, for example, target examples or hint text around that as well. That can all be done in the additional details section. Bear with me. So the other thing we have also just tidied up is that in the pastoral or safeguarding, or however you name your naming convention is, it now does break down. Sorry, apologies. It does break down the how many urgent messages you've got and how many non-urgent messages and how many unread messages you've got. Now that is still all driven from the admin section through notifications, where if you've got the on-track notification, it will just break that down. So you can see it at a glance without having to go into your inbox there as well. I think that covers the progress and performance. I don't know if Joe, you've got anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cav. Yeah, as you can see, that I think the biggest change, obviously, being Markbook and moving it to Angular and changing the look and feel. I think to say, I'm sure everyone will agree, is a big improvement from the previous Markbook. And what we've tried to do obviously is replicate the functionality, so you're not missing out on anything, but also obviously improving things where we can. I think the progress and performance modules, so ILP, pastoral or safeguarding and Markbook, there will be some continuous improvement for them. So we won't just sort of, oh, we've changed them over to Angular, now we're going to leave them. We will continue to improve them. So say, please do feedback to myself, to Cav, our communities, however, because we will look to continuously improve them, alongside obviously improving and updating our other modules. But those progress and performance ones definitely, because they add so much value and things do change over time. And if there's anything we could do better, and then we absolutely will look to add it in. But say that the Markbook, please do get in touch with us, or please do try it out, because we think that the new Markbook is excellent.
Thank you. So the last few things I want to go through is the IDP. Within the IDP, we have just load up Tobin. You now have the option of pausing and ceasing a IDP as well. I'll let Joe explain more of that.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, just sorry to Cav, just to say you can obviously once you cease and pause it, you can resume as well and uncease. So we've added it in because we, again, based on feedback, especially for IDP, where we work with our Welsh customers quite closely, we do feel we've done a great job on the IDP. But again, by no means in terms of the UI UX, we are looking to improve things. And yeah, one of the key bits of feedback was looking to be able to pause an IDP to be able to resume it, or cease and uncease as well. Sorry, Kev.
So just on the IDP, this is the start of the Correspondence Manager work that we started. So we've now introduced the communication tab, and that allows you to, again, it's just at learner level at the moment, but you are now able to select a template and generate a correspondence directly from the IDP section at the moment. So this will give you an insight how this is going to work in the whole of the OnTrack Hub, and you've got the ability to release that and send that communication out. So I think this is more my browser than it is. Right. Sorry, this is more my browser than it is, but and then you can, you can send the correspondence directly from here. At the moment, what we have also done to link to IDP is we can set up the templates in here. Again, it's all permission controlled, but this is where you can select your correspondence type. At the moment, like I said, it only works with IDP. You can give it a name, and you can search on templates that you've already created, or you've got the Add Create Template button. And a bit like what you've got in Central, you can give it a name, you can decide what type it is, assign it to a category. And when you're going to use the fields, merge the fields, obviously you can put the text in here. But this is where you can then merge the fields as you can in Central as well in here. And it's just a matter of clicking onto it, and it will display on the template there. And at any point, you've got your save button when you filled in titles, which is what I forgot to do. And then you have your save button there. So you still got the option where you can store it into student records, or content that can be edited before they get sent out as well. So, Joe, I think you were going to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thanks, Kev. So essentially, this, I think there's two parts to this. So the first part is the IDP element to it. So from within the IDP, you can generate the correspondence. So we did, again, got some feedback. I think this was the wheels were in motion before I started in January. And I think Simon took the lead on this, but essentially had feedback to say, well, from the IDP module, we want to be able to generate correspondence out based on IDP templates. So we acted on that, we built it into the IDP, but then obviously the feedback is, well, we'd like to be able to create the templates in OnTrack rather than having to go into Central. So then obviously that born the idea of, why don't we look at Correspondence Manager as a whole, moving that across from Central over to OnTrack. So currently the first element, being able to create the templates is available in OnTrack. The generate correspondence will come at a later date. So from an IDP perspective, you can create your template in here, and then you can generate it from within IDP, providing you got the specific roles and permissions, but as an IDP admin, to be able to create your template and then generate that communication based on an IDP wholly in OnTrack. For non-IDP purposes, you can create your templates in here, but you unfortunately can't generate them, and we are working on that, because, as I say, we weren't treating this as a separate module when it first started. It was as an extension of the IDP, but to say it's become a separate feature for us to look at bringing Correspondence Manager over as a whole. So, say again, part of our long-term thinking around OnTrack and the future of OnTrack and everything, to say we want to. So we had a lot of feedback about having casual users in Central and having to get specific people, specific permissions just to do, maybe just create a template and generate correspondence. And that's all they need to do, is say bringing it to OnTrack should hopefully sort of widen the net in terms of the people who are able to use this functionality. And also it should be using a familiar user experience as well. Okay, so say keep your eyes peeled, because we will be adding to Correspondence Manager here to be able to generate to generate communications. Excellent. So I think what here, if you just notice, so Cav's going to be showing you the new contact hub. So this was the parent hub, but we started the process to rename parent hub to become contact hub, because again, it's not just for parents, it's for any contact who may wish to be able to get a window into a learner's progress. So again, it's part of a longer term journey with this, because there are some wider UI UX changes that we want to make. The first step, and one of the first things that Gabby tasked me with when I joined in January, was actually make this workable and make this usable. So that's what we've done. So again, like we've done with the Learner Hub homepage, we've stripped some stuff back. We made sure that only key and more pertinent information is displayed on this page. So should you log in and you've got multiple contacts, you'll see that. Click on the details. You go into the sort of familiar learner progress screen. So all the key sort of metrics and KPIs are all here. And again, for anyone who's familiar with the same screen in Hub, it's exactly the same. The left-hand side, the secondary nav, you'll see the menu is quite reduced in terms of what you see. And we have also put some security work in. So should you know the name of a page that's not listed there and you go to navigate by the URL, then you will get an error and you will not be able to progress. Okay, so for those members of staff who are also going to be contacts, then as I say, they can go to the primary nav and change their view. So if you click into their tab, you should see. Okay, so if you're a member of staff, you would have multiple roles, and you would have a view. If you're just a contact, as this person is, this is all you're going to be seeing, and say all you can be able to navigate to. But say for people like for your parents, for those customers who want to get parents involved and get them to actually access a lot of this stuff, I think this is going to be a great way for them to keep track of things without having to rely on their child to actually let them know all the information and remember all the information as well. We are going to be doing some work in the future around B2C, so getting Contact Hub working with B2C so people can sign up and log in again with those B2C credentials. Just to say, from our perspective, the Contact Hub is sort of widened. It's not just for parents; it could be for guardians. We've had some examples where we've had institutions who offer sort of GCSEs, and they allow schools, I should say, they sort of subcontract some of their qualifications out to local colleges and stuff. Again, they want to get a way to keep progress and keep up to date with how specific learners are doing without the need to send emails, without the need to send letters and all this sort of stuff. So again, we've built this sort of dashboard view for external use, and I think, as I say, it's a great addition. But again, with everything, if there's any feedback, if there's any key things that you think are missing or you'd like to see, especially from what you'd expect a contact to see, then again, please get in touch, because we are going to be working on this over the coming releases. So again, be good to get some feedback from customers to validate and look at getting some new content in there.
Thank you very much. So the last bit we're just going to run through is I'm going to go back into Central, and these are about the changes that Mikhail mentioned. So first one is the UIO staff. So traditionally, you used to have to go into each of the curriculum records to add the staff members and give them the role. We do have a nice little go-to navigation now that takes you into unit instance staff. and that will now open up in the Curriculum Manager grid a new tab, UIO staff, where you can view data in bulk, and you can obviously do your updates as well. You have got the ability to duplicate records. So if you did duplicate it, there's nothing stopping you from changing the course code, the occurrence, or even the staff member. So if you wanted to add a different staff member, you can do that. But you don't have to go in and out of a record. If you wanted to take, for example, let's just take 8128. I want to see everything that Robert Thatcher is assigned to. And I'm just going to do it by just this year, maybe, or next year, for example. And I wanted to change that. Of course, I can flood fill that. So if I change the first record, and if I could spell, I really can't spell. So I'll change it to Olivia Hughes, and then I've got the flood fill option. And that can obviously, as you can see, that goes to all the courses that Robert Thatcher is assigned. And of course, I've got some validation because Olivia may well already exist on some of them units as well. So we've made that more user-friendly. It means you don't have to go in and out of each course, and it should help with this supporting on the updates, the setup required for Markbook and ILPs if you're using the curriculum setup, and pastoral safeguarding if you're using the curriculum setup for the staff allocation on that. So the other change that we've made in Central, and this is I think one that customers have been screaming out for, is we've introduced a new filter to now filter using your UI level. So if you do have Markbook, I appreciate there can be a lot of units, and this is an example of the screen. So what you now have the ability to do, just to hide stuff that you don't necessarily need to see all the time, is you can now filter on the UI level field. So if I was only interested in seeing my qualification and maybe the programme year, I have now got the ability to multi-select the UI levels, and that will say that's your personal setting. So you can obviously change it depending on the UI levels that you're using. But it means that you can just concentrate on the qualifications and not have to keep seeing the units as well. On the reverse, please remember you've got that filtering. So if you're wondering where the unit information is, at any point you can untick any of them, and that will retrieve the grid back to the full details. We also have that available in the academic history as well. So again, that UI level feature also works against here. It was, again, we had a lot of queries around being able to just, if you just wanted to see the assessment results and not see all the placeholders for the units, it allows you to do that as well. And that filter contains a list for both in here as well. And that's me.
Excellent, thanks, Kath. It's a very efficient demo there. We actually have a couple of minutes to spare because that was a whip through of what we've done. Joe, I don't know if you want to ask while we've got a record turnout on this user group about the absence reporting update and how people are using the module at the moment. And we can get some feedback afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So say we're in the process of upgrading our report and absence module to Angular. But in doing so, it'd be really good to get some feedback for those of our customers who do have report and absence license and use it. I've wondered if there's anyone who'd be willing to maybe, as a separate, have a call with me in the next few weeks, just so I can understand how embedded it is into your business processes, how you're using it, if there's any general feedback around improvements or things you'd like to see. Because to say we're keen whilst we're doing the work now. Now is the time for us to maybe make some additional changes, but also get a feel for. Obviously release the module. We know people have got the license, but again, it's how people are using it, how much they're using it, how important it is. And again, it'd be really good if I could set up some conversations if people are willing to have a short conversation with me, and say for me to understand it from your perspective about how embedded it is, and maybe if there's any further amendments or additions that you'd like to see. So yeah, as I say, it might be something to consider, maybe take away and have a think. You should have my contact details. If not, I'm sure they can be passed around. But say it'd be really interesting to set up some calls with some people who'd be willing to speak to me, just to say I can get an insight into how you're using things. So I think the report on absence module, it works really well as it is, but moving it to Angular, it just improves a lot of things, and it's part of our ideas around obviously providing consistency across the modules in OnTrack. But in doing so, obviously, it'd be really good to get an idea of how people are using it and what they'd like to see.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. So with absence reporting, that's the very first module that I built when I joined Tribal. So it's always been quite a big deal for us, but it has been adopted really quickly. So not the best timing of my product management career, because I did launch it straight into a global lockdown, but it's now been adopted by a huge number of our colleges. So we wanted to make sure that it is really usable, it's really accessible, and that we're making sure that as it's being so widely adopted, Angular tends to mean that it performs better in mobile, it's more performant, it's a little bit more intuitive for learners as well, and it means that in future it's easier for us to add functionality. So we've already got quite an extensive request list for that, so things like staff being able to approve or decline, being able to see absence reasons more clearly on the staff and the register side. But the first work is just to do that Angular upgrade, isn't it, and make sure that it's as accessible as it can be. Excellent. Stephen, over to you. Do you want me to share slides?
Yes, please. Yeah. While that's loading, there's been a few questions we are responding. Some of them are coming as comments. It's not always obvious. So if you have a question that has been missed, we will go through and make sure that we've responded to them all at the end. Just while waiting for the slides to load, I didn't follow up just to say, in terms of communities, please look on communities for any information on B2C. I've recorded a number of videos there going over some of the demo that you saw, but also showing B2C working with Contact Hub, and there's been a question around that. I've created a new group around authentication, so if you're interested or have questions, please put them in that group, and then it gives people a focus area to look at. You're also welcome to contact me directly. And just to point out, there was an issue in the base release with creating a new account. There's going to be a spot fix available imminently. I had it applied on the demo system this morning, but if you look at it and you're already looking at it in your test system and it's broken, please check out the known issues. It will be updated either today or this week. So just if I move on, just in terms of 444 highlights, I think I've covered the B2C stuff. Just to talk a bit on some of the other things that we have done in this release that we've not necessarily shown. So some of these have been touched on the demo, so I'll just go to the second bullet point. So in the demonstration, Cav showed you logging onto OnTrack Learner and OnTrack Staff Contact or Staff Hub at the same time. And that is a change from a security level to lock down authentication a bit more tightly to make sure that there's no risk of someone using an authentication token from one site to the other. So that was primarily security driven. We've also put in some additional that XSS cross-site scripting protection. So this is something that's come up in a number of pen tests over the years, which has been fixed in a number of ways, but the issue kept repeating in different forms. So we've taken a whole new approach to that in 444 through what we call HTML sanitization. So the idea is that if you have HTML markup that is in a data field, so maybe you're using it, you've got bold tags or you've got underlining tags or using HTML markup for formatting, the idea is that sanitization will let that through as safe markup, so HTML markup that is considered safe, but at the same time will block anything that might be maybe a malicious user trying to enter data to hijack your site. So you'll see some content removal. So hopefully in terms of day-to-day operation, you shouldn't see any change to the way your site works, but just to make you aware of that change. And if you do find that you've done some custom pages that maybe use extra HTML built-in features that maybe exploit some of those loopholes, that you may see some changes of behavior. There is an institution setting that allows you to opt out of that for certain key attributes. So there is a way of working around if you do find a blocker. But yeah, hopefully for the most part, all of the base pages work as you would expect, as they've always worked, but you can now be assured that the site is more secure than it was before. Performance also got touched on in one of the previous sessions, and I guess this is just to call out that we've been doing a lot of work. We continue to do a lot of work on performance. One of the key things that we found in last year's enrolment period was the impact that tryout could have on system performance. So we found that if you were trying out a page, whether deliberately or accidentally, a config had been checked in tryout, it was slow for the user using it, but also there was an impact on other users. So we've reworked the way that tryout works, so you should find it works a lot faster. But we've also added an institution setting where you can turn off tryout completely. So we anticipate that you might want to have tryout on your test system, but turn it off completely on live, or maybe turn it off on enrolment day. With the setting turned off, you can still try and use tryout, but it basically ignores that. So it protects your system performance. As Joe referenced, we've done quite a bit of work on the learner homepage, and partly that's to improve the layout and the way things work, but partly it is to improve performance. But hopefully you will see that as well as the functionality being very rich, the performance again is dramatically improved. And we've also done quite a bit of work around load testing and done some framework changes. We've done some API updates to try and basically improve performance throughout the system. So those are all things that have gone into the 444 release that you might not see, but hopefully will feel the benefit of. The other thing I think I just wanted to draw a reference to is around our UCAS integration. The key point for those of you who are using our UCAS integration is that UCAS have introduced new endpoints this year that return data in a different format, which was a little bit of a surprise to us. But the way we have addressed it is that in 444 there's a second workflow, and the two will be, so as you upgrade, again, no impact on upgrade, but you can then transition. So UCAS are supporting both endpoints. They've said until the 1st of October. So at some point you have to make the decision to switch. There's detailed information. Again, please look in communities. There's further information around this. There's further information in our online help on how to do that. We've also added a number of extra feedback. Basically, we've taken feedback on people using UCAS integration this year and have incorporated that into our out-of-the-box product. And if I just take this opportunity to look forward to what else we are doing, what we're looking to doing, so there will be more work on B2C. So again, we are looking for feedback. There are a few things that we want to tie off. So notably the invite mechanism in Contact Hub, making sure that works with B2C. But yes, also we've left space in our roadmap for feedback that you give us based on what you see in 444. We will continue to look at security. That's an ongoing thing. We are continuing to look at performance and looking where we can improve things. I think the key thing to look at for enrollment day is, if your load on your OnTrack Learner website goes up tenfold, maybe more than that, do you have sufficient capacity to handle that kind of load? And that's why, certainly for everyone who's using on-premise systems, look at how your infrastructure is deployed. Certainly consider load balancing your web services. So web services is probably the key point. That's where all the heavy lifting is done. So looking at that, we're hoping to give some advice on, based on our load testing, on terms of numbers you might expect and what your concurrent load might look like, to try and give some advice on the spec of the servers and how you might want to do that. It's quite a tricky thing to do it with definitively, so it will be sort of guidance. So we would encourage you, depending on how you're hoping to use Learner Hub and Staff Hub, to scale make sure your system will scale accordingly. And the fourth point there, we're doing quite a lot of work around integrations in 445. So I didn't mention it. There was a new version of Pi that was shipped with 444. Have a look at the Pan Intelligence website to see the features that are in there. We will be taking another version in 445. We are also looking at payment integration with a company called Flywire. This hopefully will give us lots more options in the future around taking payments in a more modern way. So we're excited to be telling you, and we'll be sharing you with that in the future. We're also looking at some level of integration with Sentry, a diagnostics company, and we will also continue to develop the UCAS integration. So more details will follow on all of these as the development progresses. I think that's me, and I'm handing back now to Gabby.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. There's a really busy chat, so I'm not going to run through all the questions because I think we'll be here a while. But we do, if we have time at the end, we have time for a Q&A. If not, we'll make sure that all those questions are thoroughly answered as a follow-up. So we've had a couple of people asking what's in the roadmap, what's coming up next. We've skipped roadmap updates a little bit recently. But I'm really excited to start, being able to say this is what we think is coming next. Partly that has just been because our focus has been on specifically very big statutory updates. So for those of you in particular who have done things like the HESA return, you'll know that that was a really extensive update for the roadmap. So it's a lot of work, a lot of delivery. We've also had quite a lot of security work going in recent times. So I think I'm starting with Kevin, if you're ready.
Yep. Okay, so I think it's fair to say I've not had a great deal to say about 444 because most of the work that we've done in the statutory area has either been non-UK or was actually pushed out in 443 service packs for our higher education customers having to do the HESA student return. But we have now started the development of the 445, which will be start of July release. So this is traditionally the main release for UK statutory work, getting ready for the start of the coming academic year. And we have a number of things. So we've got some New Zealand work still to do, I see there. We also, of course, have the English statutory funding return for 24-25 coming. For Northern Ireland, we have the CDR return. And again, we have the statutory changes which have been requested for 24-25 and significant performance improvements. We're aware that we've been having problems with the performance of the CDR process in the last year or so as we've sort of accreted additional data and the existing model wasn't really working very satisfactorily. So we are making performance improvements in 445. The intention is that we will continue to make performance improvements beyond 445 as well. And then for the HE, for those customers who have to make the HESA student return, both FE and HE institutions, we are developing the student return for 2024, so the one that will go out towards the latter end of this year. And we're also working on the data grids for HESA to ensure that you can manage the data in bulk more easily. Some of that is already in place. More of that is coming in 445. Beyond 445, we will be working again for the CDR, probably still further performance improvement, but certainly also looking at how we can productize, for want of a better word, the configuration work that is currently done by our professional services colleagues, so that the development team output more completely reflects the CDR requirements without PS having to do additional config on top of that, or at least reducing that. In Wales, we are also aware that the CLUR implementation in Central has not been massively changed for some time now. It's looking a little tired. We have various proposed changes that we want to make, both for the editability of the data and for the performance of the CLUR return. and we also have a potential future return, which we can't really say a great deal about at this point in time, which may well form our first statutory funding return done not in central but in web. So that's going to be an interesting development about which you will doubtless hear more over the next few months. And under consideration, so still probably a little bit further off, so obviously in the ILR world, the English customers, we have the LARS data import. Changes to that will be made for 445. This services both the ILR and curriculum planning, but we also want to do more tidying up of that, basically to reduce the amount of work that is done and remove what is now redundant data from that import, which is serving no useful purpose. And the last item I think there within this area is for the A to C exams integration, which many of you will be familiar with and will also be aware that it's taking a long time to come to fruition. It remains the case that particularly around the Pearson EDI EDIFACT work for your BTECs, Pearson have been proposing to cease basically their EDIFACT service and move everything over to the forthcoming A to C model, but that has yet to actually happen. We've been in discussions with Pearson, and indeed around the A to C programme in general, but we're not getting any fixed dates for this yet. So that's probably still some way down the line, but we're waiting for clarification. That's probably me on the statutory side. Say nothing particular in 444, because it either went out before or wasn't applicable to the UK market. And everything really now focusing on 445 and getting everyone ready for the next academic year return.
Excellent, thanks, Kevin. So on to OnTrack. Joe has to nip off, so I'm Joe for the time being. So you'll see that this is a really extensive roadmap, and as I think we've discussed a few times, the future for EBS is web. We know that particularly as you're starting to think about moving your institutions into cloud, web delivery becomes more and more important, and getting the occasional users out of the client becomes more of a pressing issue, particularly around both performance and the affordability of cloud. So we've had a couple of questions about risk identification. I know we've been trailing it for a little while. So this is coming. So this is effectively the reason that you have had to install an additional license in ILP for that cohort builder, because we've been replicating the cohort builder, making it generic in order to allow you to do the risk identification. So the idea behind that is that you can create a specific cohort. So that might be based on, for example, study location and 16 to 19-year-olds. And then you can ask the system to track learners who are dipping below a risk measure that you define. We'll start with attendance because that's obviously the key one, particularly in indicating things like churn, dropout. So this will be a builder that enables you to say, just FYI, these 10 learners have dipped under the attendance goal that you've set for them, and you might then want to flag and start an intervention. Learner Hub homepage. So as Joe and Cav showed, we've been thinking about improvements to performance and usability for a while. The work has already started and it will continue. And what we're really thinking about is making sure that for learners it's as easy as possible from a mobile phone to drop into the homepage, do what they need to do, access the data that they need and move on. So we're really thinking about meeting learners where they are. With that in mind, if you have a particularly technical learner group who you think would like to be involved in user research and to test and trial some things, do get in touch, because we'd love to speak to some groups of learners like we have in the past about some user research and make sure they can give us their feedback on what's working really well on Learner Hub. Similarly, OnTrack enrolments, we know that for a long time you've needed or you've been building your own self-service enrolments wizards, and we want to make sure that there's a productized version that's really stable, that's really intuitive and performant. Although this says it's in development, this is a really long-term piece of work. So we're starting by improving and updating the web services that you have to make sure that if you have your own PS built or home built enrolment wizards, that you have all the web services that you need and that they're all performant, they work, the business logic's appropriate. We'll then move forward to intuitive wizards, making sure that actually, as far as possible, you can guide learners to do their own enrolment work, and you can minimise the number of learners who are in your main lobby clutching their GCSE results in the middle of August waiting to be manually enrolled. Absence reporting, as we've mentioned, we're rebuilding that in Angular to make sure that we improve the accessibility. One of the things, I actually saw the review on this development this morning, one of the things that we've added is improvements around the data that's available to learners. So when they're recording their absence, making sure that they can see how that would affect their attendance, so that if, for example, they're entitled to the AMA in Wales, they can understand, how that absence might affect their financial support. And then safeguarding. So we've had some really good feedback from sites who are using safeguarding really heavily. We know that moving from pastoral to the new safeguarding module was a big change, and we really appreciated that feedback. We always appreciate when you let us know how it's working, what your business process is, what you wanted to do next. And the big piece of feedback coming up was case management. So being able to see an overview, understand what's happening within your particular cohorts, and manage cases as we're going, all in one screen has been really key, and we'll be working on that coming up. Again, if you have any feedback around that, we're always happy to hear it. And we know that particularly for safeguarding, your DSLs or DSPs and your intervention and support teams might not be the teams who are on this call. So please do feel free to put them in touch with us and encourage them to access a communities account and make sure that they understand that they are also valued users. Their feedback really matters to us. Fund Manager, I'm not going to talk about too much because I don't want to steal Mikhail's thunder, but we will be moving support Fund Manager to web. And we know that that means that those support users who either are only going into client for that, or who aren't going into central at all, and you're managing their data for them, that will make it much easier for them to manage the module directly. As we said, we've improved Parent Hub, so we've made it into a contact hub. That work is ongoing. So one of the things we're aware of is that you need to be able to send data in and out of there. So things like your safeguarding concerns. So we are continuing work on the contact hub for you. With the statutory funding return in web, the idea long term is that we will eventually make all of our statutory funding returns available to staff in web, so that it will be much easier to see and manage data validation, errors, anything that's going on actively. We know that for a lot of our regions, the direction of travel is API driven returns, which will mean that there's less day-to-day management of things like validation errors because they are automatically picked up and tracked and fed back to you. So we're also making sure that we're prepared for that in all of our regions and we can support that. There is a new accessibility standard, the WCAG 2.2 AA, moving on from 2.1. That comes in the autumn. As we redevelop a module, we always start by thinking about accessibility and mobile responsiveness anyway. So it's not a huge amount of upgrade, but we always want to make sure that that's prioritized. So we accessibility test everything that happens in front end ahead of every release. It's a part of what we call a definition of done, how we know that something is complete. But it's always worth us making sure that we review that, especially with a new standard coming in. So that's a review and upgrade of anything to make sure that not just that it meets the standards of things like screen readers, high definition, but also that you feel like it's really intuitive and your end users can use it. And then we've had a few questions about this, and I've made you all wait. Outlook and Teams integration. So this is in planning, which means I cannot give you a deadline for when it's going to be delivered. That is for good reason. It's very complex. A number of our staff have worked on Outlook and Teams integrations in the past. And the consistent feedback is that because the API changes quite regularly, it fails a lot. And for other providers who offer an Outlook and Teams integration, it's been quite patchy. So a big part of what we need to build in is something that flags to key people that that integration has failed or is not connecting. so that if you have changes to timetable and they haven't been fed through, learners and staff can be notified. So it's really key to us. Our key expectation at the moment is that Outlook integration will be most important for staff, but that Teams integration will be important for everyone, and that for Teams integration, I know we've had a number of sites ask if we can also add Teams links to our timetables and On Track. If you have any feedback on that, if you have particular use cases, if this doesn't sound like enough and you need something else, please do get in touch with us now, because now's the time when we're planning, when we can think about all the possibilities and what's available to you. If you are using something like Google instead, so using Google Classroom, Google Calendar, also do get in touch. In the past, what we found with Google Classroom is that every single setup is entirely different, and that the freedom it gives you, unfortunately, really hinders us being able to offer integration. If we can see standard options for integration, it's easier for us to consider that with EBS and On Track as well. And then moving into under consideration, so we've had a few discussions about this. A number of our sites have beautiful authorization setups built by them and professional services. And when we talk about authorization, the easiest example is the withdrawal, transfer and completion. So, for example, if you as a tutor want to request that a learner is withdrawn, you might have a drop down that has your institution's agreed interventions. So has this learner been offered a different enrolment? Have they been offered part-time study? Have they been offered financial aid? You can then approve that. You might have a free text box to add some narrative, and that then goes to the approver. Depending on the institution, that is either a manual approval, so that approver approves it and then it goes to the MIS team, or if you have a lot of trust in your approvers, your approver agrees that learner can be withdrawn, and that can then just be set as a workflow, so the learner is automatically withdrawn at that point. It gives you a paper trail. We know it's really important for you and your institution to be able to track those withdrawals and transfers to make sure that they're appropriate, but also it's a standard authorization that can then happen in the web. We're starting to think about how we can offer that as a productized version. If you have already built in a professional services version of this, the license for the productized version will be free until your renewal, because we know that you've already paid for this kind of process. But we would also like to apply it to things like curriculum change approvals, along with learner-facing approvals. So things like a learner asking to change their contact details or their next of kin, giving you a standard approval process that happens in the web. Again, I'd really welcome any feedback about that, use cases, anything that you think you might apply that authorization process to. It is still under consideration, so I don't have a timeline for it yet. Similarly, we've had a lot of requests for data mining on On Track, so being able to query your data in the web. That again becomes much more pressing as we see institutions move into the cloud, because we have to consider your data security and how you access your data once you're in our cloud environment. That again is ongoing discussion. I don't have an update on that. I have left SSRSD support in here. I don't want anyone to panic. We're not taking away anything anytime soon. For us, this is us replacing the key reports with report versions that work in web, so that you can get users out of central. So for us, it's about us offering an alternative and not taking away the thing you rely on just yet. So we know that for you, the key activities are learning agreements and timetable reports and ID card printing, and that if you could do those in web, it would be much easier to make sure you're not getting teaching or temporary staff in your client. So we're removing some of those staff and making sure the client is a little bit smaller and a little bit more secure as well. If you have any feedback about that, again, please do get in touch. I have seen the most amazing, absolutely MacGyvered RFID ID card printing process, which involved blue tack and a scanner underneath the printer. But if you've got a process that is better, if you've got something in mind that you really need, now is the time to start having those discussions with us. That is everything I have for the On Track roadmap. We will always be working on performance, on security and on accessibility. But if you have particular questions or feedback about that, again, do get in touch or mention it on communities. I will hand over to Rico.
Thank you. So what I like to do is to provide you a quick insight what we have done and what we're doing now and what we plan to do in future around the Cloud Manager. So during last release 4.44, we have done several interviews with the customers, colleges. So I would like to thank you very much for your time and spend and answering our questions around how you manage the funds and how widely you use the fund manager in the college. We have picked this module because it's a low risk module. It's not widely used, but it's feature rich enough for us to see it as something, as a candidate to move it to the web and maybe set up foundations, how then we can move other more complex modules like curriculum or full-blown enrollments. So the first thing is about the value. So what we're trying to do is move the value of EBN central modules while providing the accessibility of the web browser. So it goes towards our move to cloud and to using the web for key functions. We have approached it with the personas in mind. So we looked at the admin, which is the primary user or persona in Central. But during interviews, we have identified that there's a lot of input into the process from your team leaders, from tutors, as well as learners. So this is how we will try to do it in OnTrack, when different personas will have slightly different approaches and functions. As a method, of course, we deliver it via OnTrack, and we try to build up on the OnTrack experience and journeys that currently already exist in safeguarding or ILP. One of the things that we want to build as well on is the editable grid, similar to Markbook. So you have seen it earlier in the demo when you've got a fill down option and you can edit, but it's at the moment it's still limited to the numbers. What we want to go is one step further and actually provide it something what you can do in Central. So now during 4.45, we're looking at the process design and the wireframes. We aim, well, if we are successful, we aim to provide some early preview of the module in 4.46 for the feedback. So it won't be completed. It's more about to receive the feedback. What we will do, is it good enough, and are we going in the right direction, with the view that to make it releasable in 4.47. So if you move on to this next slide. So just quickly to show what the current plans are. If we build on personas like admin or a team leaders, like manager or a tutor, the first thing you will have is the actions you will perform most often. So you might, rather than setting up the reference data or the funds, you will be starting with, I want to create an assessment, or I want to create a really quickly cost, while also providing less frequent actions towards end of the screen, like a setup of the reference data, fund types, cost categories. What we want to do as well is provide ability to manage reference data that is specific to the module within an OnTrack. So you can give this permission to your admin or more advanced users that there is no need to go to the central resource and ask them to set up reference data. To the next slide quickly. And this is just a quick preview, again, based on the OnTrack, how we could potentially approach the editable grid with options to initially make the full, well, narrow down the search, so the grids won't be, thousand records, and then have out of the box filtering on a column, so you can really quickly do search or contains line actions. So again, what you can do with a single record on the line, like navigate to learners that are associated with the fund, or really quickly delete it or create a new fund. So yeah, going forward, use the AG grids with raw actions and make them editable and provide the bulk operations. So once those foundations are set, then we can quickly use it for let's say, curriculum manager or enrollments or learner applications. And yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Miko. Just a quick note from me. So we have had a few questions about release dates. So you'll all be relieved to hear that the 445 release date is nice and early in July. I know that the conflict between how late regions release their specifications for returns and how early you need to get the work done around them is always tough, but we want to make sure you've got that as soon as you can. We are releasing 446, which is the autumn-winter release, in November this year. This is based on all the surveys we did of customers last year when you all said October was terrible for you. Lots of feedback from individual institutions. And it also allows us to have a consistent 3 to 4 month release cycle for our developers. So we know that historically October has been our highest release for defects. We think that that is both it being a little bit shorter and the fact that it coincides with holidays. So we want to make sure that that's a really good performance stable release. Also looking at our feedback and usage statistics, a lot of you aren't taking releases until November anyway, so that we want to use those extra couple of weeks to make sure we get you as much useful information and useful software as we can. As usual, Tribal Cloud releases will be scheduled with you, so you'll have the opportunity to confirm when you want those dates. And we have a detailed release plan, so it's on Communities now. It tells you the high levels of what we're expecting to release in the rest of the releases for this year. And we'll also do the monthly service packs. As long as we have something to release, we do a monthly service pack. If we don't bother you. And if we have anything urgent, we also do an urgent spot fix for you as soon as we can make that available. I would really like to hear your feedback on that later release date. It was a matter of some controversy, and we also have to consider that the Northern Hemisphere is not the only hemisphere we're in. For our New Zealand customers, they're on a calendar academic year, so adopting in November is a little bit of a tighter schedule for them. It's very similar to our July. So if it doesn't work for us, if we decide that that's not an appropriate date for the UK, that's something that we can move in future years as well. Just coming up to last details. So this is how to join communities, so how to join the community groups, and how to sign up for the EBS Digest, which is an email digest. If you in the past have had the digest and then you've decided you don't want it and you've unsubscribed, you can resubscribe. I would recommend it. Included in the digest are links to upcoming webinars, not just the product ones, but also the fantastic training schedule that professional services do. So they will do regular webinars about how to use key functions, things like workflows, things like your statutory funding returns, and how to make sure that your data is ready. We also tend to do a top tips, so anything that's coming up that you might want to prepare for, things like exam season, CAS preparing for enrolment, all come out in the digest as well. And any little kind of tidbits of information, so anything that's coming up that you might want to see coming and get your teams ready for, or prepare your training time for. So it's a really useful email. I'd highly recommend getting set up for it. We, for once, we never have this, do actually have some time for a Q&A. This might be the only time we've been concise enough to include a proper Q&A. Does anyone have a key question that they think they'd like covered in here? I will. So we've had a good question about accessibility, how we've approached it and what we've done. I will send a reply through to this specific asker, but I think it's worth covering. So in terms of accessibility, we use an accessibility testing function called SortSite. That gives us a specific report, so it tells us exactly what is wrong according to the guidelines and what level it's at. So quite often it will tell us that we're at or above the guideline level, but there's still something we could tweak. That will cover things like links, making sure that they are readable to a screen reader. Anything that is defined, when you build a web page, you have to use specific syntax. So you will want to say whether or not something's a header, and it will flag if you've used that wrong. So if you've used the wrong thing, just to make the UI look good, it will tell you you're wrong and you need to update it, which I really appreciate. Also quite a lot in terms of color contrast. So I don't think we've actually covered it in this discussion, but when we add new Angular charts, we add a new report. One of the things that we do is by default set the colors to be high contrast. So without you having to fiddle with any of the reports or displays, for your users who need high contrast colors or are colorblind, the charts and reports should all work for those users. We'd be really interested in hearing from you. We do have a couple of sites where we have blind or visually impaired users who've been fantastic at getting back to us, letting us know anything that doesn't work. So if there's something that you find is an obstacle or that doesn't work well for you, that's the kind of thing we'd love to hear, because we're always looking to improve it. We've got a couple more questions in here. So can we have a correspondence preview feature so you can send a test email without having to find an account to test it with? That's a really good question. We've got a couple of other requests for moving Correspondence Manager into web. I think the one that I had the other day that was really interesting was can we set it to release bulk correspondence in batches, which is something that you can do if you do newsletters from something like MailChimp. So you can say deliver 100 at a time or deliver 500 at a time, which means that it lets you manage those kind of bounces or responses over time. So release in batches every 15 minutes or release in batches every half hour. That's something that Joe's already taken a note of, because we think it's probably really useful when you're thinking about mass mailing and mass messages.
Sorry, we've just got a question about completing our future plan to allow learners to complete the RP without the staff member signing it off. We have already got that feature. It's when you design the reviews, you can go in, and as long as you don't have any staff questions, you can set it that it doesn't need a staff sign off as well. So that feature is already in product.
Brilliant. And we've had a question about Central. So is getting rid of Central, particularly in terms of data input, still going to happen? Very long term, yes. Short term, no. It is our long term goal that eventually you will only be able to do everything in the web. You will only have to do anything in the web. So you don't have to pay for all of your virtual clients or your installed clients. You're not getting a ton of users in that core installed client. We know that we have to crack some things first. We can't move you over now. So the key for us is that you do a lot of bulk data management, and you need bulk edited grids, which is why Mikhail's work on support for management is so important, because that will give us bulk grid update in the web, which I know a lot of you have asked for a long time. If you're interested in seeing how that move to fully web goes, I'd really recommend signing up for some of the Maytask webinars that are coming this year. So Maytask is well in train with the development of Maytask 6, which is a completely web-only brand new version of Maytask. We are sort of following in train. Maytask is smaller, it's more concise, and it was more recently refactored, so they're a little bit further ahead than us. But yes, very long term, we will be a SaaS cloud web-only MIS. But we're not going to forge ahead fast and reduce functionality. It's really key to us that EBS doesn't become less functional. Oh, somebody's asked as well, could we have a schedule feature for our Correspondence Manager? So prepare the SMS or email now, so it goes out at 9 AM Monday morning. That's very intelligent. I'll add it to Joe's list. He'll be delighted that he nipped off and immediately added loads of things to his backlog.
We're all up to date with questions.
Super. So I will finish with a quick reminder, mostly because we're very excited about it, that we will have a live in-person conference this summer. It will be in July, the 16th of July, and it will be a shared FE and HE conference. So there will be FE specific sessions, plenty of them, we're already planning. But you will also be able to go to the HE sessions. So if you're interested in things like moving away from our smaller UCAS provision into tribal admissions, which is designed around HE admissions, if you're interested in our tribal dynamics products or anything else that we offer, you'll be able to attend the HE sessions as well. So it's a really good opportunity to think about your provision wider than just further education. Super. And I think that's us. Thank you very much to everyone for your time. This session is recorded so you can catch up afterwards. And as ever, we'd love to hear from you and hear what you thought of the session. Thanks, everyone.